Hello everyone and welcome to episode 55 of the Nekozuki Knits podcast. My name is Katie and you can find me on all social media as Nekozuki Knits. Today's episode is a reboot. We're going to ignore episode 54 and what I talked about there because I did not look at the show notes, and honestly I feel like 2018 is going to take us in a very different direction than 2017 did. To be honest, the business did fantastic last year. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But personally, it was a rough year. And I want to come to this podcast with the best energy I can. And last year, most of the time, I just did not have it. So I feel like 2018 is going to be the year. It's going to be awesome. There's lots of things coming that are really exciting for Nekozuki Knits. There's lots of things coming up for me personally that are awesome and I'm really excited about as well. And we sorted a lot of the crap out last year, so yay! We did go through January doldrums, but it feels like it's going to start to lift now, which is always nice. It is really terrible weather here in Cochrane right now. It's cold and blowing and snowy and all of that, but we did have some sunny shenanigans, which I'll go into a little bit more in chatter. We're going to follow the same normal arc. I'll show you my knitting, I'll talk about the books I read, and then I'll chat a little bit more about like personal life stuff, so that if you just want to see the knitting, you can. If you just want to see the book stuff, you can just watch through knitting and books, or if you want to hear the whole thing, then you can stick around to the end. I did switch back to my phone. I actually found the doohickey that holds it on my tripod, so there won't be that clicking and whatever was happening with the camera last time. That was really annoying. And yeah, I'm back in my studio. Now my studio is a complete mess, and actually the shelves do kind of reflect that, but behind my camera or my phone, where basically behind you guys is how I consider it, yeah, you can't move around in my room very much right now. We've been doing a lot of house cleaning recently, so it's trying to balance out. Lots of stuff just kind of gets shoved in here a lot of the time because it's convenient, and then I have to deal with like kind of the balance of what actually has to stay and what goes. It is not a large space. We are looking to actually develop the basement within the next year, and that would help a lot, but that costs money too, and so it's not something we've pursued yet. Yeah, so let's get into it. I do have a couple finished objects that I do want to show you because I am proud of them. I'm not going to show you everything that I've finished in the last, how long has it been? I think I recorded just before Knit City, just after Knit City. It's been a few months, so I haven't finished a lot actually, but there's a couple things I've finished that I'm super happy with. One of the things that I finished was the pixelated pullover, and I took it, this is by Jennifer Beaumont. I did not make a pullover, I actually made it a cardigan. So I steeked for the first time, guys. This was awesome. It is superwash wool, so it's not something I would normally recommend you start steeking on, but honestly I went into it and I'm like, I will wear a cardigan way more often than I wear a pullover right now, which is funny because my next faux was actually a pullover with good reason though. And I'm like, and I want to try steeking, and this is my first colorwork sweater for an adult, and I've been wanting to knit it since before we moved into our house. So like, I think I would have got the yarn for this. Well, here's the story. I actually went and bought it with the money that I saved on the lighting fixtures that I chose for the house. So I think that was in like November of 2014. So I've had it for about three and a half years. Anyway, it was always destined to be the pixelated pullover. I knew that. I wanted to try the contiguous shoulder construction. Sorry, the camera's on the wrong side for what I usually justify to. Which is really cool shoulder construction. It's a new one for me, and I really love it. I am going to pick out the cast off on the sleeves and actually knit more, because this is only like, it's not even like a 3/4 sleeve, it's that awkward length between elbow and 3/4. So I need to add some more, like, and that's fine because I've got quite a bit of yarn left over actually. I was really worried that I would not, but it's fine. I'm also going to switch the twisted rib to usual 1x1 ribbing because I prefer the look of it. It will also match the collar, which I added. I added a shawl collar. trying to see there. Should have actually worn it on camera, but I didn't think of that. The bottom edge is going to remain twisted rib, but that's fine. I don't mind that they won't match. Still 1x1 ribbing, it'll be fine. I finished this in 11 days because I knit it between Calgary Fiber Arts Fair and Japan because I really wanted to wear it to Japan, so I did finish it. I was not unhappy with the sleeves at that point. I am now, although I'm really happy with how it's wearing for being merino. There's some peeling under the arm already, but honestly not as much as I would anticipate for merino. Not as much as other brands that I've used in the DK weight, because this is actually knit in Madeline Tosh DK when they're under their old label still, obviously. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it seems like it's going to wear. I did a crochet and ribbon reinforced steek. I am unhappy with how I sewed the ribbons in, but that's something I can fix in the future. It doesn't bother me enough that I'm not wearing it, so I'm not worried about it. And you can see a little bit in the front, but it just looks like a detail. It looks intentional, which is fine. So, and you can see my 1x1 ribbing there. And then my buttons came from Stash Lounge. This whole project is actually knit from stuff I bought at Stash Lounge. Well, the yarn's from Stash Lounge, and then the buttons are from Stash Lounge as well. So, yay! I really love it. It looks really good on. I wore it all the time in Japan. This was the cardigan I took, and it filled the need. It filled the gap because it was a lot cooler in Japan in November this trip than it was 2016. And then another whip that had been on the needles for over a year, and I finally finished it. I literally had 3/4 of a sleeve, 2/3 of a sleeve, and a full sleeve left, and I finished them in the last few weeks. This is the Telluride Erin by Amy Herzog, and it is knit out of Madeline Tosh Vintage and Liquid Gold, which is their worsted weight, and I love it. I had to pick up the sleeves and knit more in here. I don't know why, but my sleeve length or my arm length never matches the actual pattern sleeve length, so I always have to add length. I don't know why I don't do it at the beginning. I did try these sleeves on because I know this, and they fit, so I don't know what happened, but I had to go back and actually add I think it was like 4 inches or something like that. You can kind of see where I did it. It's not too bad. I did alternate skeins in there. You can see that I definitely was working with a hand-dyed yarn, but not too bad. So what I ended up doing though is, because I didn't want to re-knit 4 inches or 6 inches, however long the ribbing is, I cut it and then I knit down and then I actually Kitchenered it together, which you can't tell. It's awesome because I did not want to re-knit that much ribbing. It was easier to pick it out and cut it, take it out, knit it down, because there's only like 21 rows or something like that, and then Kitchener it, then re-knitting the ribbing, at least for me, because that would have been like 7 to 9 inches of knitting. Anyway, really like it. It looks really good on. I do need more button downs to go under it because I don't like styling it without a shirt under it, but it looks really good with like my 50s skirt. It looks really good with a button down, looks good with jeans. It's going to be very versatile. A couple of the modifications, this was knit in pieces for the body. Back and front I knit in pieces, and then sleeves I actually did a set-in sleeve. You can tell, but honestly not when it's on as much. So I did a sleeve cap, because what you're supposed to do is knit the sleeves up and then seam the sleeves and then set the sleeves in. Seaming the sides was enough for me, and the shoulders. Those two make sense to me. The sleeves did not, so I knit from the top down by picking up and doing a set-in sleeve cap and then knitting down. So I'm really happy with how it turned out. I'm really happy that that modification worked, because I don't think I would have finished the cardigan or the sweater otherwise. This is yarn from Beehive Wool Shop from 2016, and I would have cast it on in January of 2017, when just before we went down to get Flynn in Washington, because I carried it along on that trip. And then I finished it mid-January. I don't know. The details are on my raft page. I'll have to wait and see how much yarn I actually used because I am on a slight stash down right now. Not that yarn isn't coming in, but that I want to use more of my yarn that I currently have for what it's intended for. Part of the shuffle was setting up the office upstairs, which meant that I was able to actually kick all of the yarn out of the studio here. I don't know if I chatted about this. Let's finish whips and then we'll go into that. So over Christmas I also finished socks. Everyone got slippers I knit a few years ago in their stockings. And yeah, I knit Dallas a pair of socks right after Christmas. He got a pair for Christmas and a pair after Christmas. And my niece is getting 2 pairs because I was knitting her and her boyfriend one and then they broke up. So she's just going to get 2 pairs. And then I have a secret project I'm working on as well, which I can't chat about because a friend might be listening to this. Anyway, for whips, I do have other things on the needles. I actually cast on the Owls pullover by Kate Davies as well. Again though, I am doing a steek. It is steeked. I've knit one side of the button band and I need to knit the buttonhole band now. So I'm just, I'm procrastinating on it, whatever. So procrastinating on it by knitting socks. I'm half finished a pair out of Mud Punch. I feel like this is Broken Bells. I know I picked it up at Knit City this year. I'm loving it. I did a short row heel as I was knitting because honestly I have another pair of socks where I just need to knit the heels and it hasn't happened yet. So I'm like, as long as the socks match, I don't care if the striping matches, because here's the thing. You're not going to see above this anyway because I mostly wear my hand knit socks under jeans. And then I've got the toe cast on for the next one because I got distracted. Socks are kind of just going to be the carry along project this year. So yeah, they'll get picked back up once I'm done the next 2. I do have the Owls cardigan on the needles and I want to get that finished. And then I have 26 out of 52 stitches or something like that cast on for another Little Wave out of Shelter, which I'm knitting for my mother-in-law, but I don't have enough on it to actually show you, so I'm not going to. But the project that's been getting the most love recently has been a shawl. So here is in all its very colorful glory. It's the Good Vibe Shawl by Nadia Chrétien Lachen. I'm sorry, Nadia. I'm not 100% sure if I actually pronounced that correctly, but I will link to it in the show notes so that you can find it. She's NCL_knits on Instagram. I do know that because I started following her over there, and yeah. So this is really cool. I'm really loving it. Yeah, it's going to be kind of asymmetrical, so this will be the top edge up here. Yeah, or something. I don't know how to describe it, or if it's going to be more crescent shape, but anyway, it's got short row lace panels in it. The yarn is Ancient Arts Yarns. I met Stephen West and I liked it on Socknado, and then I'm knitting the little sections out of one of their highlighter mini skein sets. So there's colors to match all of them basically. Eee. Let me just attack you with yarn. So there's green, orange, blue, the yellow, which just fell out and I'm not going to reach for it because it's behind the tripod, and the pink. So I'm really liking how that's knitting up. I just finished the first lace section last night, and so I'm going into the next color 1 section, and we'll go from there. So that was dyed as a colorway for Knit City 2017 when Stephen West came to Knit City, and yeah, I really love it. I've been trying to figure out a way to actually put those highlighter mini skeins with that yarn, so this is going to work out perfect, I think. Yeah, and that's all I really want to admit to having on the needles right now. I actually did go through and do a whip down a bit. I finished a few things off that had just been languishing because I was hemming and hawing about my decision. So I actually finished the Authenticity by Soft Sweater Knits. It's not blocked though, and it does need a very vigorous blocking, so I will show that to you guys once it's actually been blocked. My main thing there was I was going to do another lace repeat, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with the pattern, but I did the minimum suggested lace repeats and I was bored. I don't even know why. It's not like it was a bad pattern. I was just done. So I finished off, I think I had like 2 rows on the suggested last repeat, and then I went right into the border, and now it's done. And so I actually have a project finished instead of just letting it wait for me to decide whether I was going to knit the next section of lace or not. Honestly, if I had decided that I actually really needed to knit that section of lace, it wouldn't have been finished. So that's why I finished it. I'm just like, I'm done. It can be blocked and whatever. I think I have like 3/4 to half skein left of the Canadiana that it was knit out of. Not a big deal. Yeah, so there was that, and then I finished the Vivid blanket. I think I discussed that last time. I did actually finish it, and it seemed now, I think I'm going to run it through the washing machine one more time because the cats definitely did some loving on it while I was on the blocky mats. And yeah, there's some cat hair in it. I cheated and did a very simple single crochet connection between the squares, so you can actually see the contrast yarn, but for the blanket, because it's for a little boy, it looks really good. It's really cute. It looks like it looks homemade, which is nice, and handmade, I guess would be the better way to describe it, but in a good way. Yeah, so I was supposed to actually go to his birthday party a couple weeks ago, but unfortunately it snowed ridiculous amounts. Like, it snowed about a foot that weekend, and the birthday party was right at the beginning of it, so they didn't even have a chance to really like clear it or anything. And I was glad I stayed home actually, because roads within Calgary were closed basically. Yeah, it was insane. It would have been a terrible drive out and a terrible drive back, so I'm really glad I didn't actually go. But that's good, because now I can actually wash the blanket again, get some of the cat hair out at least, give it another good like stretch out, and just make sure all the seams hold, and then give it as a gift. Yeah, and then you'll see a few of the other whips kind of come up over the year. I think most of what I have left are actually socks. So basically, once I finish this pair for me, I'm alternating between pairs for Dallas and then pairs for me. And what I'll do is once I'm finished this pair for me, I will, when I pick up another pair for myself, I will pick up one of the whip pairs. Whips include like Hermione's Everyday Socks, a pair of lace socks, and a pair of just plain vanilla socks. It also includes that one pair that just needs heels. And the biggest problem there is I need to find the socks to put the heels in. I have the yarn, I just need the socks. And even if I don't have them at the same time, then whatever, I'll end up putting in some like minis or something like that. I'm not sure what I'll do there. Anyway, yeah, and then that'll clear out, I think, the rest of the whips, except for the entrelac scarf that I cast on years ago. But there is a reason for that one. I only work on that during the Rangeland Derby, which is in July, so that's when I'll work on it and finish it this summer. And then my whips will be clear. That's the bigger thing I think this year, is stash down the yarn that has specific projects. So I've got, if you've been following me on Instagram, I posted what my goals were for like sweaters, because apparently 2018 is the year of the sweater. Awesome. Because most of my stash yarn that's taking up a lot of space, obviously, is stashed for sweater. And sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, so the owls is one of those, and it's mostly done. Seraphim Vest is cast on, but I have to be in the mood for the mosaic knitting, otherwise there's no point in me actually knitting on it. So that is a whip that is in that, but I'll pick it up as I want to work on it. Then there is the Little Wave cardigan, which I am starting, and then I realized one that I forgot actually on that list was the Hitofude, which I will be knitting out of Madeline Tosh Merino Light in the colorway Coquette. I know this because I bought the colorway specifically for it a few years ago, right before the dollar crashed, or as the yarn wasn't affected by the dollar. So I got a really good deal on it actually, and it's a gorgeous color, and I just haven't cast it on yet. So those are the next ones that I'll cast on once I finish Owls. And then the rest of the yarn is all mostly like sock and single skeins, so I just gotta basically pair the rest of the yarn up with what I'm going to do with it. Some of it I know what I'm going to do with. Some of it is just stuff I bought because, oh, it's pretty. No specific plans, but I need to get that sorted. And I'm just going to be more conscious about what I purchase. So it needs to have an intention. Now that I have been knitting for a decade, I know more what I enjoy knitting, and I do realize that I need to kind of go with my wins. This looks awesome now and I want to do it, so I need to do it then, rather than trying to keep this stash up. There's a few things I like keeping in stash just for like to pick up instead of having to purchase and wait. So sock yarn is perfect for that. But I definitely, for sweaters and stuff like that, it needs to happen, and then I need to knit it instead of letting it wait. So we'll see how it goes. Who knows? It would help to actually clear out a lot of those drawers, just because then it wouldn't have to move back in here, and then I can actually, yeah, it depends on all what's happening this year, how the studio evolves as well, or if we finish the basement, and that'll affect the yarn storage, and we'll come to that bridge when it happens. So now that I've rambled on about what I'm doing with my knitting, let's actually move on, because I am finished with that part of it, to reading. So I have actually, I don't know how much I've actually read since last time, like I said. So I'm just going to cover the last few things that I have actually read in the last like 2 weeks or so, or picked up. So one of the ones is, I saw the trailer for Ready Player One and I thought it looked really good. The concept is amazing. It falls into the dystopian kind of narrative, but that's fine as long as it's done well. So I picked it up at the library, and I got about 50 pages in and went, I don't want to finish this. Okay, so I really like the premise. I really like the idea, the virtual oasis, blah, blah, blah. And I think it could be done really well. But the problem that I was having with it was that, and I didn't read any reviews before I started. I actually went and read reviews afterwards. So Ready Player One is by Ernest Cline. It is a gentleman's first book. Yeah, it's his first novel. Just making sure on the back. But the problem was that I was finding that it fell very much and heavily into the fake, or will call you out as a fake geek if you don't know everything about something. Now within the story that kind of makes sense with the whole competition happening, but the connotations of that community, which was on the rise at that point, at the point of the publication as far as I know, the toxicity of that community is what bothers me now. Now if I'd read it then, it might have been a bit better, but like, they call a character out within the first 40 pages, and it just reads so violently of that toxic part of that, of the fandom community, that I was just kind of like, well, it's something I could acknowledge and continue the book. So I went and I read some reviews and stuff like that, and just the way people said that it was like, because the references are all 80s references, they weren't kind of pulled through either, so they would just kind of pop up and then disappear, which is really weird for a book that like is supposed to basically, feels like it's supposed to be a love letter to the 80s. So I kind of went, I've got better things to read, to be honest. And given the first part with the toxicity of the, you're a fake geek because you don't know everything about everything, or everything in the community, and then the whole not actually following through with the references, I decided that I was going to put it down. Now, if you have a good argument for me to finish it, I'll pick it back up, because honestly, it intrigued me enough that I probably would if there's a good reason to finish it. But right now I don't feel like there is. Obviously that is my opinion on it. Yeah. The other thing I do find I have a problem with is a lot of books by first-time authors, particularly male authors, unfortunately. I have found it in women authors as well, but not as much, as it feels like they're trying too hard. I don't know what it is, but it's just, the book itself felt like it was trying to call me out as being a fake geek, even though I'm not really interested in 80s culture. I felt like it was like, yeah, it was really weird. It's got a really weird vibe for me, so I don't know if it would actually be something I finish, but if you have a good argument for it, let me know. Because I am interested in that era. Dallas is a really big video game fan, so like I did actually get a lot of the references, but again, it felt like I was also being called out as a fake geek if I didn't know everything. So, you know. Let's go on to a book I really enjoyed. Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. I will admit, I mostly was caught by this cover, which is amazing. I love this, and then the back of it's really gorgeous as well. I didn't actually know what this was when I went into it. The back of it is not very descriptive, and I thought it was a little bit more of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which it was not, which I'm not mad about, because I think it's an original story as far as I can tell. Hispanic characters, so POC, which is awesome, person of color. And I think it was really well done. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. It's a young adult book. I totally got pulled in by the cover. It's called Wild Beauty, and you should read it. It is definitely a romance. And I think the biggest points for it are, it is a well done romance. It's not like love at first sight sort of thing. Deals with also not explicitly, like, well, yeah, explicitly it deals with lesbian and bi characters, which is awesome, and dealt with with a lot of finesse. There we go, elegance. But I enjoyed it. So Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore, and she's written other ones, so I think I'm gonna pick them up as well. Definitely a young adult. And then finally, sorry, I'm rambly today, apparently. Apparently I need to record more often so that I'm not quite as rambly. But the last one I'm reading right now is Akata Warrior. I reread Akata Witch in preparation to read this Akata Warrior by, I think it's Nnedi Okorafor. She is a Nigerian African-American. Yeah. Born in the United States to Nigerian immigrant parents. Yeah, I really enjoyed Akata Witch, and it always felt like it needed a sequel, and then a sequel came out. It came out earlier this year, so I am reading it. I'm really enjoying, well, I'm not that far in, actually. I literally just read the prologue, so we'll see how I enjoy it after that. But I enjoy Nnedi Okorafor's writing. Again, person of color, but an albino, so that's really interesting as well. Dealing also with the divide of being an African American of Nigerian parents in Nigeria. And Africa is not generally something that I am, or somewhere that I'm pulled to in literature. Usually it's fairy tales, fantasy, Asia. I will read a lot more Japanese fiction, obviously manga and everything like that, and consume a lot more European, North American, and Asian literature and media in general. And I guess in some ways this would be American literature, but it's set in Nigeria. And there was something else very important I was going to say about it along the same lines. Oh, it is fantasy, but it's set in Africa, so it's a very different setting from what I normally consume in my media. So I really do recommend Akata Warrior. The first one, these would both be suitable, I think, for about 13 to 14 plus. The character herself is 13 and a half in Akata Warrior. She's younger in Akata Witch. Yeah, but I don't think there's nothing explicitly sexual about Akata Warrior. There's a little bit of a deeper undertone that I wouldn't suggest it for like a 10-year-old, but above that for sure. Again, based on your child. We've discussed that before if you've been watching the podcast. So, all right. I have rambled for half an hour and there's a little bit more rambling to go, guys. I'm sorry for this. But, you know. So I think I recorded last time before we went to Japan. Japan was a really successful trip. There were a couple kind of hitches in the plan that I did not take into account originally because it's not something you would until you get there. One of which being that if you get about 200 meters from a shop, you probably need to wait for them to cut it. So what ended up happening there was the first shop we went to in Osaka, it took us a good 3 hours to decide and then go around and get everything chosen out. This is the pneumatic tube shop. So what you do is you go in first and you actually go, okay, well, and this is how I do. I go in and I look at the fabrics and then I kind of have a general idea of what I want. And then I go around with a person to actually say, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I want, and this is what I want. They take a clipping of the fabric, cut it in half, put it on a little like order sheet for you, and then an order sheet for them that actually gets sent up a pneumatic tube to the cutting floor. Awesome way to design a shop in the limited space through Japan. Also a really awesome way that I don't have to pull a bunch of bolts. So I think it works really well. However, that did take us about 3 hours to begin with. And then it took them about 4 hours to cut. It was actually really impressive how quickly they got it done. But that did put a kink in the plans because we were supposed to do that, pick it up, and then go to Kyoto. So what ended up happening was we actually did that. And then we did go to Kyoto. We got on the bullet train, the Shinkansen, and went to a shop in Sanjo? It's along the main shopping street. And got the fabric there. That only took about 45 minutes. Again, quite impressive for how quickly they did it. And then we went back to Osaka and picked the fabric up. However, the hitch of the shop in Osaka definitely makes me realize that that is actually the better way to do it, because originally we were going to go to Kyoto and then come back and yeah, start in Osaka. The next day, we weren't there very long, so I think the next day we did Fushimi Inari, which is the business shrine, and then we would have gone up to Tokyo. Tokyo we did a shop. I was mostly done in Osaka and Kyoto though, so it wasn't overly a lot there. And I did plan for an extra bag this time, so I did actually bring home 5 bags worth of fabric, which is how we'll be doing it in the future, because it was a lot of fabric, guys. It was a lot to process when I got home too. But yeah, we ended up doing Tokyo, and then we had a free day in Tokyo, and we did, what did we do that day? Oh, I met up with, oh no, Fluffy Calico Crafts, Barbara, because she was actually there in Tokyo for a wedding, so that was really cool. It's someone that I follow on Instagram, and she lives down in the Carolinas, and it was way more likely that I would run into her in Japan, so that worked out really well. I think it was their first day there, so we went for ramen and then to Harajuku, got crepes, and did a couple of things in Harajuku itself. And then we went back and chilled, and then we flew out. We actually flew through Vancouver, which was different. Normally we do get a direct flight, and I will not be flying through Vancouver again, simply because bringing commercial goods into Canada. There's a whole bunch of paperwork, and the paperwork process in Vancouver is quite a bit different than Calgary because they have so much more for commercial goods actually coming through the airport. The other part of it is that someone actually took our bag. So I purchased special luggage now because lightweight luggage that's durable, because I think it's like for every 2 pounds I can take off, I can bring back 5 extra meters or something. It's ridiculous and it's worth it. When what you're trying to do is expedite your fabric purchases. So I purchased new luggage for this, but I didn't think to actually put any really big identifying markers on it. I did put like luggage, like the handle, not a strap, a handle on it to mark it. And someone took her bag. In Vancouver, the lucky part of it is that they were also going to Canada, so they didn't take it outside, or to Calgary, they didn't take it out of the airport. And yeah, so that was a whole kerfuffle. That was about an hour and a half. And of course that messes up the customs thing, because sometimes if they want to search it, I don't have the bag. So Air Canada was amazing about it. They gave us a like lost bag sort of, or delayed bag thing, and they would have pulled it if they needed to, but we went through without having to have it. And thankfully, actually, in some ways, this person took that bag, because otherwise we would have had to like go over to customs and then come back. We got lucky, and they sorted us through CBSA right at the terminal. So yeah, we'll definitely be going through Calgary itself, because I can do all of my customs work right in the terminal instead of having to do a transit over to customs and then back as well. Anyway, that was an adventure. We did get the bag eventually in Calgary, and everything was fine. It's just, how do you forget? Because like the other person had a whole bunch of stuff hanging off their bag. So I was like, how do you forget that on a trans-Pacific flight? I don't get it. We just had a like little luggage handle, not ribbon and everything like the other bag. But, you know. So we did that. And then Christmas, Dallas was up at work still, so I spent Christmas with his family. And we actually just went for a trip down to Disneyland. So Dallas worked what's called a mutual, which is he stays off for 2 weeks for a coworker, and then the coworker works 2 weeks for him. And so he just had 2 weeks off, and he did a surprise trip to Disney. So I had said like we should plan something for that week, because we were both really in the January doldrums, between the cold and the weather and just January. And I didn't know this, but he had actually booked the trip back in October. So we got to stay at the Disneyland Hotel, and yeah, we went to Disneyland, which was super cool. I can unabashedly say that I do prefer Disney World, for various reasons, but it was really cool to be at the original park. And I don't feel too bad about liking Disney World better, because one of Walt Disney's biggest models is we'll do it better next time. And I can tell that there are definitely some really cool things for Disneyland, but I think that they definitely took a lot of them and refined them really well for Disney World. So that was cool. It was really interesting because lots of things were under refurbishment. So like Main Street USA, leading up to the castle, was actually all fenced in because they're replacing the tracks on the road right now. So that did actually throw the trip off quite a bit. Splash Mountain was also closed, so we're gonna have to actually go back to experience a few of the things we normally want to, because we did not see the fireworks. There were no castle fireworks. There was Fantasmic, and I think they made use of the space that they had for Fantasmic really well. And then California Adventure was really interesting, because most of the rides we have experienced in some form or another between Walt Disney World and Tokyo Disneyland. So, and that's part of what we were comparing it obviously to our experiences in those other 2 theme parks. And then the other part of it is that they're under a lot of renovations and refurbishments for opening some of their new parks. So right now, California Adventure is actually under construction to make Pixar Pier, which will be open soon, but that means that a couple of their like main attractions were actually closed. So we couldn't do the Ferris wheel, and we also could not do the big roller coaster because that's part of what they're making into Pixar Pier. Yeah, it was really interesting. It was very different. The park for Disneyland itself was a lot closer. We did meet Moana, so that was really cool. There's a lot of different characters out than there are at Disney World usually. It was really interesting seeing some of the concepts that were used in the original park. We were actually looking at like how there's forced perspective on the castle, which is quite a bit smaller, but like I told Dallas, it's in the land of far, far away. It was cool that you can actually go into the castle because you can't do that at Disney World. And then we enjoyed some of the rides we normally enjoy. And I do see most of the people that I've chatted to do actually prefer Disney World over Disneyland if they've done both. But I do see some of the complaints that they would have of Disneyland versus Disney World. So like Pirates of the Caribbean was better. It definitely was. I enjoyed Pirates there a lot better. Haunted Mansion was really cool, and the Hatbox Ghost was working, which was amazing. So if you're a Disnerd like we are, definitely really cool, and you'll know what I'm chatting about in Haunted Mansion. The building for Haunted Mansion was really cool, and Big Thunder Mountain was awesome. We love Big Thunder Mountain at Walt Disney World anyway. We loved it at Tokyo Disneyland, and that was really cool. And we did Indiana Jones a lot, which was really fun because that's not a ride we get. We had a mediocre Jungle Cruise, and then we actually had a really good Jungle Cruise. And that was cool to see. It was cool to see the original attractions that opened with the park. And that was one of the big things I always wanted to do. And honestly, if we'd never gone, we would always be wondering. So, oh, and what else is there? We did Cafe Orleans, actually on suggestion of one of Dallas's coworkers. We did get told that the Monte Cristo was amazing, but it was something. I don't know. It didn't fit our palates. It was really greasy. And I actually had the shrimp and grits there, and I loved it. They were so good. Creole, like, yeah, that was really good. We tried the beignets, which were decent. We tried the churros, because those are different. They do exist in Walt Disney World, but it's not quite as prevalent as here. Yeah, it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the fact that we went. It was an awesome surprise. We stayed at the Disneyland Hotel, and Dallas actually, I don't know how it happened, but through some Disney magic, we did actually get upgraded, so we had a park view, which was really cool. And our headboard lit up and played a song, so that was really neat. And then what else happened? And there was a few things that were still there that I had seen at Disney World on our original trip in '97, but that didn't exist anymore because they've been like, so like there were still the submarines, which have been rethemed to Finding Nemo, but like they've been taken out in Disney World and included into the Fantasyland expansion. So like a few things are definitely different there. I really liked the buildings on Main Street USA. They felt very authentic, and it was really cool to see that, because you could definitely tell where Walt put his effort, and a lot of it was into those details, and that was really cool. Yeah, it was an interesting trip. I enjoyed it. I am very glad that we went to Disney World first, and I think that we'll enjoy Disney World longer. But I'm perfectly happy to go back to Disneyland at any time as well. And the one really cool thing is that I actually got to ride Jingles on King Arthur's carousel. Now, it's a horse on the carousel, and that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I found a lot of information after this. So I did not know this, but I knew this part. So every Disney park has a carousel. Every Disney park has a carousel because that's what inspired Disneyland. Walt Disney was sitting on a park bench watching his daughters ride a carousel, and he couldn't ride with them, but he wanted to. So he went, okay, well, I want somewhere where adults and kids can enjoy like this, like amusement. Which is why I call BS every time someone says that the Disney parks are for kids only. Because it was designed for both children and adults. But a big part of that was the carousel. So every single Disneyland park or iteration of Disney has a carousel. Even the secondary parks, or not, well, not the secondary parks, but the originals. So like California Adventure had King Triton's. Tokyo Disney Sea has a 2-level Aladdin carousel. I think most of the other parks also have a carousel, so the original property ones. And every single Disneyland does for sure. So Magic Kingdom, Tokyo Disneyland, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Paris, all of them. And this specific carousel in Disneyland has for sure been running since 1922. That is the date that documents start. There's colloquial information that actually says that it might have been running since 1875, which is amazing. I did not actually realize that all of these carousels are also antiques. And yeah, so that was really cool, and it actually came from Toronto. So, you know, really awesome part as well. And there was a massive refurbishment to it. Obviously, they made all the horses jumpers, they call them, which means that none of them are standing. Basically, they're all in movement, and they did this so that you feel like it's King Arthur, you're Knight of the Round Table, and you're charging into battle or wherever. So they're all jumpers, so there's movement. And they took a lot of the benches and stuff off. There is one bench and access for handicap access. But the benches, they were used on Casey Jr., the train over in Storybook Land, which was also closed for refurbishment, so that's something to go back for. And anyway, so the first time we didn't get it, but there was one horse, and I didn't know this before I got on. I looked it up the second time we rode it. She's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Has like jingle bells going down the saddle, off the saddle blanket, and her roses are gold with this really cool iridescence to them. They've got a little bit of pink, or like rose gold almost. And then I find out, yeah, she's actually really special. Her name's Jingles. She is the old lead horse. So before the carousel got automated, what ended up happening was she was how the operator actually counted how many rotations there were. So it makes sense that she's so decorated. And she has now officially been dedicated to Julie Andrews, which is super cool. So her saddle blanket has a little coat of arms almost on it, of like a JA for Julie Andrews and Mary Poppins theme and everything like that. The boots and the umbrella, and there's hidden Mickeys, and she's just a really pretty horse in general, and that's really cool as well. It seems like I'm really lucky to have been able to ride her, because I know a lot of people have said that, like, they go in for refurbishment every year, but that, yeah, for these sorts of things, Jingles has been painted gold for the 50th anniversary. And then looking into it later, there's a little bit of conflicting information, so I'm not 100% sure, but they said that it was either Walt Disney or Lillian Disney, his wife's favorite horse. The Lillian Disney one did come from Saving Mr. Banks, which is the story of Mary Poppins, but there's also colloquial information that Lillian Disney's favorite horse might have been Doubloon, which is marked by a gold tooth. So I don't know. But she's a pretty horse. She's got a ton of history with the ride. Yeah, and I've got pictures with her, so I'll put them in and I'll let you see her. So it was still really cool. It was really cool going to see the history, because it's like, we really enjoy the parks, and we really enjoy the parks for being theme parks and amusement parks. But part of it is also I really enjoy the history of it too. So I was really happy that we were able to go. And I'm really excited to go back and do some of the things we missed. So like the fireworks show and Splash Mountain. We did do 4 days this trip. I think if we go back, it's going to be 2 days max, just to kind of finish off what we didn't get done. So yeah, and I got some really cool things too, actually, because they carry a few different products than they do at Disney World. So I got a really cute Disneyland dress, which is essentially the same as the Disney World one right now, but I have to have them in both. And then down at their gallery, Wonderground Gallery, they actually have some prints right now. They have a really cool print of Rapunzel, which if you follow me on Instagram, under my personal account, Peaches and Cats, I actually posted a photo of it there. It's by Ashley24 Taylor. That's her Instagram handle, or Ashley Taylor. And it's Rapunzel sitting in front of a bunch of her drawings and creations, and then the lanterns coming up. And if you've been following along for a while, Tangled is a really big film in my life. I actually walked down the aisle to the love song, basically, of Tangled, the I See the Light, and so that was perfect. I'm actually going to get it framed and hang it over my sewing machine, because I responded to her on Instagram and she sent me a really in-depth response, and it was super sweet because she has a ton of followers and she did not have to take that effort, about how Tangled inspired her to pursue this career. And so I'm going to put it above my machine to kind of help with some inspiration for me, because it never hurts. So, happy Valentine's Day. I am back. I'm going to try to record every week. I think what is going to happen is I will record on Tuesdays, and then I will post between Wednesday and Thursday. So what I would actually suggest is put the notifications on down under here, and then you'll get a notification as soon as I post. The Wednesday to Thursday is kind of because Tuesdays are the days that Dallas flies out, and flies in. So I may not always get posted on Tuesday. It's more likely that I'll post on Wednesday, because I can record on Tuesday and then post on Wednesday or Thursday. Just for a little bit of leeway. Let's say I'll post on Thursdays. Yeah, Thursdays is good. Today obviously is special because I am rebooting. Yeah, so it's going to be between Wednesday and Thursday, just to make it easy for everyone. But yeah, so I hope you guys all have a good week. I hope I have more knitting to show you next week. I will show you a little bit of a shop update and information as we go here. I guess we'll run through events actually, because I do have some confirmations. I am going to be doing a pop-up party to kick off the year at Stash Lounge on March 23rd. It's a Friday. It'll be 6:30 to 8:30. That just got confirmed today, so I'm super excited for that. I will be introducing some of the new products there, so make sure to come check it out if you're in Calgary or the local area. And then I have Calgary Spring Fiber Festival, which is down at the Crossroads Market, May 12th to 13th. Then I will be at that other place, Edmonton Fiber Frolic, May 26th. And then my next for sure confirmed show after that is TNNA. I will be guesting with Ancient Arts Yarns, just to kind of see the lay of the land and see how everything works. Still learning. And then the next confirmed show after that is Knit City, which will be the last weekend in September this year because of how Thanksgiving falls this year. Nothing else confirmed right now. That doesn't mean that I won't be doing more. If there's a show in your area that you would like to suggest, I'm always open to suggestions. And I will chat with you guys all in a week. Thanks so much and have an awesome day. Bye.